Welcome to episode number 295 of Destination Linux, a video podcast show from the TuxDigital Network. If you're new to the show, Destination Linux is a discussion podcast perfect for all experience levels. Whether you're brand new to open source or a guru of sudo, this is the show for you. My name is Ryan.
I'm Jill.
And I'm Michael.
On this week's episode of Destination Linux, we are going to do a special challenge for Michael and Jill. They think they know so much about Linux all the time, trying to one-up me, but I'm going to put that to the test here in this episode. Then we're going to be talking about some really cool things coming in Fedora. Plus, we have our tips, tricks, and software picks. All of this coming up right now on Destination Linux. This week's feedback comes from Maciek. If you want to send in your own feedback, you can go to tuxdigital.com/contact to get in touch, or join the TuxDigital community forum by going to tuxdigital.com and clicking on the forum link at the top of the page. Maciek goes on to say, it's funny for me to write this message, since usually the feedback you get is, have you heard about X? Or thank you for introducing me to Y, and so on. For me, it's a slightly different kind of vibe. What I find amusing is that you guys feel like my long-lost tribe. I've been using DigitalOcean for 4 years since I started working with Python and Django. Bitwarden is my default password manager ever since I locked myself out of LastPass, but no regrets. And my Linux journey accelerated sharply over the last couple of years. I found the courage to restart my DigitalOcean production server for the first time in 3 years last Friday. I have to say, your show took some getting used to, but I could surely say I'm hooked now. I never thought I'd find myself deciding if muffins or cupcakes, yet here I am.
Nice.
Keep up the good work and focus on Europe from time to time where we don't have System 76 and Linux gizmos readily available. All yours, Maciek, pronounced with the proper phonetic spelling. Listen, this is a true fan of the show. They know I mess up every single word.
Yes.
And they gave me the phonetic spelling so I wouldn't mess up their name. And I just want to say that that's pretty awesome. Thank you for doing that so I don't mispronounce it. And you're right. We do need to make sure we look at some of the vendors that are there in Europe, because there are some in Europe that do Linux hardware as well. Maybe we need to do some special highlighting just for those for you.
Yeah, I agree. We should do it more often. But I also want to say that obviously muffins. So I've helped you decide. There you go. You're welcome.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's what he was implying for sure.
Yes.
So the other thing is there was a part in this feedback that I thought was kind of interesting. It said, I have to say your show took some getting used to. And that part was like, getting used to?
How do you, yeah,
You must mean Ryan. I mean,
What?
It was difficult for us, Jill and I, to get used to Ryan as well. But
I'm immediately likable, just like Jill. There's no getting used to me at all. My teacher said something really nice to me. They were like, Ryan, you're like a fungus in that you keep growing on people. And I thought, how sweet, how sweet
poor Ryan.
to know
That's a wonderful way of putting it.
He was traumatized as a kid because of that.
Michael's bringing my trauma back. But yeah, I listen, I agree with him. We take some getting used to, specifically Michael.
I don't see how you can't flip it back on me. No,
I mean,
that's not how it works.
Thing with weak thumbs.
What stool? I don't know what you're talking about. It's not. There's no stool. There's no visible example of that. I mean, that's a chair right there. So.
Aw. And Maciek, I am actually so happy you have stayed with us and are hooked. Despite the shenanigans of the three of us, especially Michael and Ryan.
How dare you, Jill?
Both?
How dare you?
Wow.
And thank you, Maciek, for your kind words and reaching out to us.
Absolutely. Yes. And also thank you for becoming part of the community. It's fantastic. And also, you mentioned how that you are a fan of DigitalOcean because they have such great services. And it just so happens this episode is brought to you by DigitalOcean. And you can go get started at do.co/tux2022. Cloud computing can be, let's say, complex, but standing up reliable, affordable cloud infrastructure really doesn't have to be. Thanks to DigitalOcean, you can get set up and running on their awesome cloud platform quickly and easily. At DigitalOcean, you can enjoy a comprehensive portfolio of compute, storage, database, and networking products that put your cloud infrastructure in capable hands so you and your teams can get back to doing what matters most, building world-changing apps that grow your business. DigitalOcean offers predictable pricing, robust product documentation, and services that developers love. For example, I love the DigitalOcean Marketplace. You can find all sorts of software that you can easily set up as droplets with just a few clicks. It is awesome. Plus, at DigitalOcean, you can get started with basically any size team. If you have a team of one person or a team of 1,000 people, DigitalOcean can help you get growing with their simple, powerful cloud computing. And as a listener of the Destination Linux podcast and a member of the TuxDigital community, you can get started for free. In fact, it's better than free because DigitalOcean is giving away 60-day, $100 free credit when you go to do.co/tux2022. That's do.co/tux2022. So again, go get started with that $100 free credit on DigitalOcean's awesome cloud platform by going to do.co/tux2022.
This week, we were supposed to have an interview right here at this moment, but that got canceled. And so I had this other plan that I wanted to embark on with the audience here since we're live on Sunday. And that plan is to put Michael and Jill's knowledge to the test. So I write this show every single week, put notes in there, all of these fancy detailed notes so that everybody has a good idea and some knowledge of what we're going to talk about. And every time I bring something that's like brand new and I'm excited about, either Jill or Michael or both are like, we've already heard about it. They start throwing all these little facts out and being all fancy schmancy. So you know what? I think they look at my notes ahead of time and then they just kind of steal it, look it up, and they don't really know these things on the fly like they pretend they do. So what I have done, and this is real, I have picked 4 stories. They have no idea the stories that I've picked, and they're going to have to basically go off the cuff with none of my brilliant notes and talk about these 4 stories here in the Linux realm. So are you up for this challenge, Michael and Jill?
Well, I mean,
Yes.
it's not like we have a choice because we have to do a show anyway, and you're just, throwing it on top.
Forcing
Like,
it. on
yeah,
you
you're
guys.
just setting it up like, hey, you want to be prepared? No? Then okay, fine, we'll do this. Which is
It's a little
great.
bit of trepidation.
So this is hilarious to me because many months ago, I was talking to Ryan and trying to say, hey, we should do an episode where we just don't prepare. We have like a no safety net episode. And Ryan was like, hey, that's a great idea. He decided, let's do that type of episode, except for me. You
Yes.
don't get prepared.
I'm exempt. Completely exempt. I may jump in and help you all out a little bit, but
Oh, that's so
I
sweet
want to
of you.
let you struggle a little bit before I jump in there. So let's get started. And the first topic, it's not even that difficult. I'm sure you all will be able to fill some time and tell our audience about this. Debian stable backports now includes recent versions of Pipewire and Wireplumber. So
Awesome.
Talk to me about that.
Debian Unstable SID has had the latest Pipewire actually for a while. So it is wonderful seeing it finally coming to stable. Actually, lots of audio engineers whose audio plugins only work in Debian are going to be very excited. And as well as all of us content creators, including me, I run Debian and Ubuntu. So that's very, very important. Enjoying finally having ALSA, Pulse, and Jack applications coexisting peacefully is quite wonderful. And Ryan, I use Jack on Debian and Ubuntu, and you have to spend a lot of time and effort getting it set up, like using a low latency kernel and configuring real-time CPU tweaks. Not to mention the learning curve for QJack CTL. So this is a wonderful announcement. We have the latest and greatest Pipewire in Fedora, and now we're going to have it in Debian, and that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the learning curve of QJack's control. It's also a learning curve of just Jack in general. So even installing Jack is not the easiest thing to do. So having access to the different Jack tools with Pipewire is fantastic. And Jill mentioned how, content creators are going to be enjoying this because if they're using Debian, they can get the access. And I just wanted to say, as a Fedora user, I already had it. It was great. And I just want to point out that it is great that Debian is doing this. But I think the coolest part about it is that Debian is doing it for the stable backports. And a lot of the times you'll see Debian introduce things that are for testing and SID, but not get into the stable until the new refresh of the distro. That just happens usually like 2 to 3 years. And having it in the stable branches is fantastic for, in addition to, the distributions like Ubuntu, which is already kind of doing it themselves as well. Having other distributions based on Debian, such as MX Linux or Sparky Linux, which don't have updates super fast because they're based on the Debian stable most of the time. That is fantastic because that's going to be in those as well. And I'm very excited that for multiple reasons, but mostly so that people get to experience Pipewire in the full version of Pipewire. Because for a while you had access to install Pipewire in Ubuntu and Debian, but it wasn't really the full Pipewire because it didn't have the proper jack tools. And now having the full version of Pipewire with the jack tools is fantastic. And also having Wire Plumber is even more impressive because, for those who don't know, Wire Plumber is kind of like an API for Pipewire that you can automate stuff. And that's really cool because Pulse Audio didn't really work well with automation. You have to set everything up every single time. And with Wire Plumber, it's not super easy by default right now because they're still working on, making a GUI and that sort of stuff. But having that in the future, I am super excited about that. So I'm happy that Debian has this kind of thing, and I'm happy that more and more people get to experience the awesomeness that is Pipewire.
Well, I want to apologize to our audience. Both of you have failed that topic. There are two things that you were both terribly wrong at there. Number one is none of you mentioned my amazing video about using Pipewire and QJack CTL. The second failure is a lack of knowledge because neither of you mentioned that you can use ALSA, Pulse, and Jack applications with this. So you missed ALSA entirely.
Inaccurate,
That's
sir.
a big fail.
I said it.
Jill said that. How dare you? So that's true. Also, for a lot of people who don't know that Pipewire doesn't really replace ALSA. It's kind of sitting on top of ALSA in the same way that Pulse does. But you can also consider that Pipewire is sitting on top of Pulse as well. So they're all interconnected in this configuration. So overall, Jill did do that, and you're wrong, Ryan. Secondarily, we talked about the mix minus, I think, last week. So we just didn't want to be like, hey, check out Ryan's video. Oh,
you don't want to bring up my amazing video twice.
Right, of course. not back to back. That's just messed up. But at the same time, since he did bring it up, I will go ahead and tell you that video is fantastic. It teaches you a lot about how Pipewire works and how QJack CTL.
I didn't prompt that at all.
He did not prompt it at all, except for completely did. But it is great. And so check that out. We'll have that in the show notes if you wanted to.
Yes.
All right. Because you gave me such a sweet intro to my video there, the next news story I picked is EVGA, longtime NVIDIA partner, ending graphics card production. I'm going to give you a little bit about this here because I think it's interesting. NVIDIA and Linux, interesting history. NVIDIA reportedly refused to reveal basic pre-launch information about its new PC graphics cards to partners like EVGA, making it near impossible for them to prepare. There are rumors that these companies are feeling squeezed out because the manufacturers like NVIDIA are basically wanting to sell their Founders Editions at kind of cut rate prices or get those out there before anybody else has a chance to make anything, making it so that one of the greatest vendors out there, EVGA, is going to terminate its partnership with doing GPUs completely. Like, not go to AMD, not go to Intel. Like, they're just done with it, which is shocking. Let's talk about it.
Okay,
really is.
So that is crazy. I think it kind of makes sense in a way because NVIDIA is known for being very closed in terms of information regarding all sorts of stuff, including like apparently the specifications for the manufacturing itself, which is really weird because if you have a deal with other companies to manufacture your product and you don't tell them how to do that until you release it already is like that. I'm surprised that hasn't happened already. Like companies have already abandoned NVIDIA because of that. So that's really interesting. But also the same thing happens with the drivers in Linux, because the Nouveau drivers, for those who don't know, are the default drivers you get when you're using an NVIDIA graphics, and you don't have access to a lot of stuff. And it's not because the Nouveau drivers are bad, or it's not because the developers for Nouveau are bad developers. They're actually incredibly impressive because they're reverse engineering the entire driver set from NVIDIA, because NVIDIA is not giving them any information. Just like a year ago or so, they released some documentation that is about, people were talking about how NVIDIA is open sourcing stuff. And that is true. NVIDIA is now more likely to open source stuff. However, they're still doing it in like a very tiny amount, like only in massive machine learning type of implementations and stuff like that. But there was this one documentation that was released for the Nouveau team. And when it happened, I was like, "Oh, great! This is wonderful news." And then I realized, oh, it's nothing, because the Nouveau team said that this was documentation that was just confirming the things they already knew. So like, oh, perfect! Thanks, NVIDIA. You're so helpful.
Yeah.
So EVGA doing that is kind of interesting, because I kind of hope that it would convince NVIDIA to stop being terrible. Maybe. What are the odds of that? I know, but hopefully it helps.
Yeah. Linus Torvalds even said so directly, in a direct way.
Yeah, he didn't like NVIDIA too much either.
Yeah. I understand, EVGA doing this, honestly. They didn't even know the pricing of cards until the official announcements were made by NVIDIA to the public in their keynotes. Yeah. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Wow.
So disrespectful, really.
Yeah, it's just...
And some could say unfair business practice as well.
Yeah.
They are purposely squeezing out the competition. I just want to add in here, Michael, to your point, where you're saying, hey, maybe this will make NVIDIA wake up. I don't think so. One of the greatest PC part manufacturers out there, from all of us hardware addicts, I know Wendy would agree. I am this with Michael, you're Padawan, but you even know this probably. EVGA is one of the best of the best. Now, there's nobody who's perfect. There are people who've had problems and all that stuff. But when it comes to consistency and a high quality product, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better vendor as far as their overall manufacturing quality goes than EVGA. And that goes across all of their products. Plus, their customer support is some of the best in the world. Now, NVIDIA has removed them as competition. Like before, even if it took EVGA longer to get a card out, I know a lot of people who would just wait for EVGA to release their version.
Yeah.
Now NVIDIA has the entire market wrapped up beside the other manufacturers out there that, frankly, I mean, there's some good ones, don't get me wrong, but not as good of a reputation as EVGA. So in a way, I feel like NVIDIA won again by not being good to partners. It's kind of weird how the bad guys sometimes win.
Yeah, that's
so
an interesting
true, Ryan.
point. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about it in that sense, and because obviously I'm a hardware Padawan, like you said. So throwing me under the bus, which I mean is true, because we actually
I reversed the bus after I ran you over, and then
okay, perfect. That's we're starting from square one there. Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
but I do think I actually can say to the EVGA point is that every time I've had an NVIDIA card, the EVGA experience was way better than the other ones I've had for NVIDIA. So I started just doing EVGA, many years ago, and the last 2 or 3 NVIDIA cards were all EVGA for that reason. So while I am the Padawan, I still am aware and have experience for that particular thing. So yay!
And to that point, I also mostly buy EVGA branded NVIDIA GPUs, like my GTX 1080 Ti is an EVGA, and I've got a 2060 that's an EVGA, and I've bought their cards for years because they run stable, cool, and quiet. And yes, they were often priced a little higher than the competitors, but you got the quality from EVGA, and they had wonderful customer service, which they have stated that they're going to continue to offer the customer service to the existing products. So no problems there. That was really
interesting. That just there shows you how good EVGA is, because along with their announcement of exiting, they said, hey, don't worry, we're holding a bunch of our stock back so that if any of your cards that are out there break, we can still replace it and make sure you're taken care of. Like, how rare is it that companies think like on that level? And so it's just a real shame to see EVGA having to go this far for such a big part of their business.
I know. It's actually 80% of their revenue comes from their GeForce line. That's crazy. Pretty incredible.
I hope they partner up with Intel or someone else. I know they said they're not right now. They're kind of exiting, but I really would love to see that, because imagine an EVGA partnering with Intel on their new line of GPUs and really ramping those to the next level. I think that would be awesome. Really cool.
And if you want to, everyone out there, if you want to still support EVGA, they have awesome power supplies. In fact, most of my rigs have EVGA power supplies.
I'm pretty sure my power supplies also are EVGA, now I think about it.
Mine too.
So I'm still going to buy EVGA products.
All right. So y'all are doing okay so far, but I'm going to throw one that's a little bit in my knowledge realm and a little bit less in y'all's knowledge realm here.
You just did that for me with the hardware stuff.
You've been around Wendy and I long enough that you picked some stuff up. Plus, you had Jill to lean on because she is a hardware addict too. I mean,
fair enough.
So this one, though, I feel like is more my realm territory here. Linux Foundation announces an open wallet initiative. Linux Foundation is setting up a new foundation. The aim is for the new Open Wallet Foundation to encourage the development of open source software to support interoperability for a wide range of wallet use cases. Go, Michael.
I think this is really cool. I think that because having a digital wallet, for example, I just want to make it, I was very tempted to say a dad joke about opening their wallets and like, oh, you're going to give us money? That'd be fantastic. But instead, I decided to be serious for once, Ryan. So we're going to talk about the digital wallet thing. I don't think they've actually talked about a software, but it's more about a standard, right? Because I heard through the grapevine, I actually can point out that I do a news show. So the odds that Ryan is going to actually stump me completely is very low. However, once I picked all the topics, I didn't look anymore. All the topics for Twill, I picked them, I researched them, and I assumed that he would see what they were and not pick them. And so far, that is what's happened. So I don't know what the fourth one is, but it's going to be like an avoiding of the thing. So I purposefully chose to not look at any other topics this week because while he told me that we were going to do this, I thought, well, I can't just cheat and research it. I want to be fair about it because I know we're going to be testing the skills. And I'm currently...
So answer the question about the open wallet, Michael. You're buying a lot of time, but I don't feel like you're answering the question.
I was about to say, I'm currently stalling for sure, but...
Jill, would you like to talk to us about the open wallet that Michael doesn't know about? I win. That's
not true. I just said the digital wallet being the standard is cool because they're making it possible to have interoperability between different wallets and different platforms.
What is awesome. A digital wallet, Michael? What kind of use cases?
It's being able to store your credit cards in a digital form so you can use it on like Apple Pay or Android Pay and be able to have access without having to physically have those cards. Boom, winning.
Yeah, so you can buy coffees at Starbucks.
Which is important. That's the only reason you need a wallet.
While you're writing your screenplay.
For expensive coffees and then also Chipotle burritos.
Yeah.
Chipotle burritos.
Well, to me, this has actually been very important. It's something that's been discussed for years, and I'm very happy that the Linux Foundation has taken this on because we need a way of all the wallets to communicate with each other, whether it's Google Wallet or Apple's wallet, Apple Pay.
Yeah, it's going to make it great for the
It's been a pain, a pain to go to stores and, they only support Apple Pay or Google Wallet. And it's just annoying. Yeah, it's finally time to make a universal app that's open source that everyone can use and all the manufacturers can use.
Well, here's your big fail, Jill, in that you assumed Apple would go along with any standard, which is never going to happen. We still can't get them to even use RCS or anything. They're not even
using USB-C.
But someone's going to find a way on the Apple phones to be able to use it easily. In fact, their partnership with Google might might make things a little more unique.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, digital wallets can store gift cards, membership cards, loyalty cards, coupons, event tickets, plane and transit tickets, hotel reservations, driver's license, identification cards, and even in the future and some things now, your car keys themselves could be stored in a digital wallet. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to store any of that type of stuff in a digital form, I would want it to be an open source project that I can trust. It's interesting because there are a lot of big corporations like Accenture and CVS Health that are involved in this foundation already. But what you don't hear about is Apple, and likely never will, because they'll want to keep theirs completely as proprietary as possible, so that, you know, you've got this status thing, like with the green bubble versus what is a blue bubble or something. I don't know. There's some stupid bubble thing that apparently kids get into, but I don't know why we care about that, honestly. The kids are like getting into that, because aren't these kids eating like Tide Pods and stuff too? So I'm not sure we should really like
That's so true.
base ourselves on their thoughts of like whether status symbols and things. But either way, this is a really cool idea here to be able to open source this. I think you guys did I actually thought this one was going to stump you all pretty good, and I didn't think you would really know about this, but lo and behold,
I don't use one.
You did pretty good.
But I like the fact that they're going to exist. And I think that the idea of having it all interconnected is great, but not only just for the consumer. I think it's the most important is for the businesses. They don't have to implement all these different proprietary stuff. Yeah, they'll probably still have to do Apple like you're talking about, but that's one extra. So they only have to do like maybe 2 or 3 rather than having to do 50 because they have to have their own system. And then also at some point, I'm really happy to see this, because what I was fearful is that this would become the same kind of thing where everything has to have an app, everything has to have their digital wallet. So you're like, there's so many different companies that you go to the thing, you check out for something, and they say, "Hey, do you have our app?" I'm like, no. Why would I do that? Why would I download an app to get spam about things I don't want when I can come in here and just get the thing I want? So I was worried that the digital wallet system would kind of become the same thing. You have to sign up for their store card that you would have to do a long time ago. Get your store wallet and all that. So this effort is fantastic to combat that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's these cards, and it's all to track and sell your data for the grocery stores use. And one of them in particular is like, "Hey, do you have our discount card?" I was always like, "You mean your regular price card?" Because they raise the prices for everything unless you have the membership card, which then brings the prices back to what they would be in a store that doesn't have the stupid membership card. It just would frustrate me. But this particular store you could hack, because you could say no every time. They would pull out a sheet and say, "Fill it out later," and scan one of the cards and then give you your discount. And then I would never fill out the sheet and come back and get another sheet. And I would never get a membership because I don't want anybody tracking what I'm buying or what I'm eating or anything else. It's embarrassing to know how many Genos I go through in a week. And I don't want anybody knowing that. Pizza rolls are amazing.
That's a good point. In fact, Ryan, I have many times when I go to different, big box stores, I actually research what they're running on the back end. If they don't run Linux and they're not running open source, I don't sign up to their cards. That's that's my thing.
Way to do it, Jill. I love it.
Speaking of some sort of financial situation, I just wanted to point out that we have a fantastic member of the community giving us a super chat right now. So I think it's perfectly timed talking about wallets and talking about super chats. Why not? And also, this is a fantastic message because it's really interesting and you think about it. This is a troll, not a super chat. Take that, Michael.
Yes.
So, so that sort of troll, you are more than welcome to do as much as you want.
Aw, thank you,
It really showed you, Michael.
Lael.
Definitely
Thank you.
All right, so I don't like to lose. So I created a curveball here because I thought you guys could do well on those stories. I was going to get you with the digital ones. So the next one's more of a quiz than a news story, really.
That's cheating.
No,
Okay.
That actually
it's
takes
my
me out of
rules,
my-
so there's no cheating here.
Okay.
There was an article released this week entitled "The 8 Best Lightweight Linux Distros." The challenge is, can you name the 8 distros they picked as the most lightweight? But here's the catch. The 8 they chose all have OpenBox variants. So this is the 8 lightweight distros with OpenBox. And go.
Well, I think there's actually going to be a somewhat of a cheat on one of those because they could put Lubuntu in there because LXQt is powered by OpenBox, so they could
True,
do that.
Michael.
Not
Now,
there.
Okay, so I will say probably Bunsen Labs is in there.
I was just
Dang it. You got that.
Puppy Linux is in there.
What was the other one you
Yeah.
said, Michael?
Puppy Linux.
Puppy Linux is not there.
Oh, that's shocking.
You've got 1 out of 8 so far.
really.
Oh,
I
that's
didn't
Tiny
say this
Core?
was a company that made a good article.
It's not a good article. Oh.
I don't know. Like, I have never researched this topic, but I haven't heard of this particular news site.
Well, I'm
before.
shocked that that Puppy Linux is not in there because that's kind of like
Yeah.
the main thing. But
Okay.
Crunchbang++ does exist. I forgot about that.
Not there.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's also Tiny Core.
Not there.
Yeah, not there. Manjaro, they have a spin.
Monjaro's not there.
Tiny Core's not there, and this is what?
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint. One starts with an M. One starts with an A. One
Mabox?
starts.
Is Mabox in there?
Mabox is there. Yes.
Mabox is just
Okay.
a Manjaro derivative with OpenBox.
Yeah. Well, it's there. Chat, I'm looking at you. You're trying to help them.
Yeah.
Don't you do it, chat. Don't you
No.
help them.
With all the chat comments, these are things that should be there, but they're not because I've already asked them and they're not there. And you saying like Tiny Core's not? That's so weird.
All right. The
So-
next one starts with an A, and it begins with my favorite distro as part of its name.
Archbang?
Mm,
Wait, Archbang is not there?
nope.
What?
Antics.
Antics is not there.
Ah.
Antics is not there. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because they make one.
They have a Fluxbox and an OpenBox.
Yeah,
one.
they
Yeah.
do.
It's a terrible article. All right.
So far, this article is
someone
not
in
very
chat
good
got
for
one.
the
Someone in
lightweight.
chat got one. If you want to steal it, who gets it first, Jill or
Archcraft?
Michael? That's it. That was
I've
one.
never even heard of Archcraft.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I
interesting.
haven't either, actually.
So that's a new
there's-
one for me. But
Yeah, there is
I'm
You
going
know
to
when
look at
you
that
know when
up.
your lighter can't quite light and it's just kind of
Yes.
what would that distro
Sparky
be?
Linux.
Yes, that's.
However, I would like to point out I'm aware of
That-
Sparky Linux, and I talked about Sparky Linux earlier in the Debian topic, so this is not like a new distro to me. But
Yeah, it was-
but Sparky Linux has like 7 different editions, including
do,
OpenBox and LXQt and all this. So like,
That's why I didn't think of Sparky either.
The ones that are specific to OpenBox not being in there.
This isn't a
is
judge
super
question.
weird.
You don't get to judge the
saying.
question. You just get to see which ones you can pick.
Well, you're testing our knowledge, but our knowledge is beyond what this article is. So
Yeah.
like it doesn't count.
I'm gonna give you guys the last
Because
few
they probably
ones
have
because
Debian in there, which makes no sense because of
Nope,
course it
it's
has
not.
Yeah.
OpenBox. Give us
Go ahead,
another
Jill.
hint, though.
All right, the next one starts with an A and a V.
Oh, AV Linux.
Yes,
Oh, okay. AV Linux.
That was
Okay.
a good hint, right?
you're welcome.
But also,
And-
why is AV Linux in there? Because that's mostly a competitor to Ubuntu Studio and Fedora Jam, so it'd
Yeah.
be in a different listing.
the
Different-
fact that you guys know most of these like I know like 3 of these distros before, like the fact that you guys could talk about them is fascinating to me. Never heard of Maybox, any of those things. This next one starts with a PC.
PC Linux OS.
PC Linux OS. Okay.
I love how their hints now are just so, like obviously you're just
Yeah,
telling
I
us.
The next one starts with an ARC.
When you say it starts with an ARC,
ARC. It
okay,
begins.
Arco Linux.
Very good, Michael. That one took way too long.
No,
to
it's
get
because
there.
it's because
It's
there's people who
Arch,
pronounce arch
Yeah.
for sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, you need to specify which one you're talking about. But Arco Linux. See,
Michael,
these
what
are
is the key next to your space bar? That is the last one.
alt Linux?
Yeah, alt. Okay. Okay, they put alt in there. Yeah, those choices were very interesting.
Okay, I'm so there's so many distros that they did not include
Yeah.
that are way beyond like the top options for lightweight. This article, I don't know who wrote it. I'm not gonna be like judging on that one, but I'm just saying you missed a lot of things that should be there.
I feel
And
like this was one of those articles where when you pay people to go write an article for your news site and they just pick random things they found online. Maybox Linux, Bunsen Labs Linux, Archcraft, Sparky Linux, AV Linux, MX Edition, PC Linux OS, Arco Linux, and Alt Linux are the answers for those who were keeping track. Michael and Jill, you get a D- for that one.
What?
So yeah,
What?
D-.
Whoa. Are you okay? We got to rephrase this. So, in terms of knowledge of this topic, we get an A+. In terms of trying to guess what the bad choices in this article are, you get a D-. I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, yeah. All right. Fair enough. All right. One last question, then this is it. Ubuntu to replace the GNOME software store. I should say one last news story. Ubuntu to replace the GNOME software store with the unofficial Snap Store based on Flutter is the rumor out there right now. So Snap Store is the GNOME software store fork Ubuntu ships with. However, it has Flatpak stripped out. So talk about this news story here. Exciting? Good? Bad?
Yeah,
I don't know if it's exciting.
It was announced like a year ago that they were moving to Flutter on their installer.
Right, but this is a different thing that was made by the community, I think, right?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
So,
This is the remixed one that people like better than the official
Right.
Software Center. Okay.
So it's super interesting because the Ubuntu installer going to Flutter is, I think, the catalyst for why this store was made on Flutter as well. And I don't really have a preference because the store looks good. But the GNOME store, the GNOME software store looks good too. So like, I don't really see what the value between the two is in terms of like, this is a clear switch, necessary sort of. But I do think that the Snap Store, that they released the Ubuntu software, which is based on GNOME software, but has stuff changed to focus more on snaps. I'm glad that that's changing because I'm not a fan of that part. Because if you want to use the stuff that you would normally expect from GNOME software, you have to also install GNOME software. So that's not efficient to have Snap Store version and also the GNOME one to get Flatpaks. So if they're switching to include more stuff like Flatpaks and whatnot, then okay, that's great. And I am happy to see that. If it is just another store change that has the same outcome of focusing on snaps and not having options for other things, then I don't really see the difference in what the big fuss is about.
All right, I feel like you did too good on that, so bonus question. Linus makes Fedora work on Apple M2, but only for him. Only for him.
Okay,
How dare he?
He compiled the latest kernel on an Apple M2.
Who does he think he is?
So first of all, is the article say only for him, or...
That's what I said, because
you're putting it in.
Because there's nowhere where it says that it's out there on GitHub to go play with. He did it only for him, and I'm like, who does whoever Linus guy is think he is?
It's his prerogative.
What are you talking about? This is open source.
But to be clear for those who are watching, we made a joke about Ryan being new to the show. He's not. Just to make it clear, he does know who that is. But it's an interesting topic because the support for that is being worked on by Asahi Linux, not Linus.
Absolutely.
He's taking what they're doing and testing it out.
Fedora.
And I think it's fantastic because testing it out means that it's going to be having support, and to have Linus put in the effort to get an M2, test it out, and try to get that to work, it's awesome because that means there's way more important attention going to it. And I already knew that Asahi Linux was doing a lot of great work, and they've been doing that for quite a while. They have a larger team these days working on it, which I'm super excited because having access to put Linux on these types of M2 or the M1 or the M1 Plus or the whatever it's called,
M1 supersized.
The M1 Max Ultra Mega thing or whatever. So having that there is great. And I've seen people go, well, why do we need to care about Apple products? Well, because a lot of people like Apple products. And if they're on Apple and they don't have the option to try Linux, they're not
Apple
going to try
hardware without the crappy operating system, more importantly.
I think that's partial. I think there's a fair hit there. I think more people are like, we like the Apple products and we like the Apple software. We just don't like the Apple company.
True.
There's that level too, because it depends on the software. Because some of the times the software they make is good and some of it is not so good. But it depends. But I think that it's great that he's doing it, and it's great that the work that Asahi's working on is being done, because it means that in the future, when people who have those products, which are really the only options going forward for Apple users, at some point not having access to put Linux on there would be a big barrier to entry.
Mac OS will stop supporting it at some point, and then you'll have no system. So even if you want to stick with Mac OS, I think they generally support their operating system for about 6 years, maybe a little less. And so once that's done, that machine would be, landfill unless you could put something like Linux on it. So I do think this is awesome. I'm surprised, though, that Linus was able to do this because he struggled so much with Pop! OS. He's one of my favorite YouTube content creators. And he accidentally deleted
Linus Torvalds, not Linus Tech Tip.
Oh,
right.
See?
Not Linus
man. Darn. Okay.
But yeah,
I was like, where are you going with this? Did he even try?
I was like, come on, Michael, keep up.
So what was neat recently when the last stable kernel of Linux was released and they had made the announcement that Linus had compiled it on an M2, we were all really curious of what version of Linux he used. And I figured it was Fedora, but we weren't sure. So now we have that official.
Confirmed.
Awesome.
Confirmed.
And also, I do want to point out that these are a lot of great questions, Ryan, and I will give you that. This has been fun. Are there any more?
This is it. Honestly, you two did amazing. And,
okay, there we go.
As much as I hate to say it, this just proves how brilliant you all are in the world of Linux and open source that I could throw completely random stories and you guys can answer them. That's the last time I'll ever give you a compliment, but take it for what, no, you guys did absolutely amazing on that. So good job. I think it was really interesting too, to get your opinions off the fly without having any pre-work in there at all.
Yeah. It was also really fun to do.
Yeah, it was really fun. We'll have to do this again soon.
Definitely.
I talked about it on Twill that we were going to do this because you threatened us about doing this. I'm like, this is going to be fun. I'm also kind of anxious about it,
scared.
But at the same time, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one more bonus question, just because, what's the greatest password manager on the planet? Anybody?
Bitwarden!
Bitwarden, that's right. So this episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by Bitwarden. Get started right now with your free account at bitwarden.com/tux. Password manager software allows you peace of mind knowing your online accounts are secure. Bitwarden provides you with the tools to store all your passwords in a secured vault, auto-generate those passwords, and auto-generate your usernames for you, even automatically fill them in so you don't have to. You can access your data across many types of devices, whether using a web browser, mobile app, desktop applications, even the command line if you want to. Bitwarden seals and encrypts your private data with end-to-end encryption, and this is key before it ever leaves your device, so you know you're the only person with access to your data. Go to bitwarden.com/tux to get started for free. And I mean like free. You don't have to put in a credit card and all this stuff to get started for free. It is literally the greatest password manager on the planet, but they have a $10 premium account. That's just $10 per year, not per month, which it's worth it, frankly, because I use it all the time, but it's per year. And you get a gigabyte encrypted file storage, 2-step login with YubiKey, Vault Health Reports, Bitwarden Authenticator, priority customer support, and so much more. Bitwarden.com/TUX. Go there right now. Let them know we sent you. Thanks to Bitwarden for sponsoring this episode of Destination Linux.
So we mentioned that Linus Torvalds was using Fedora with that testing of the M2, and it just so happens that Fedora 37 beta has been released for testing. So if anybody would like to participate in that testing, you can do that right now. And this release is very exciting. There's a lot of cool updates. I am super excited for the KDE version, obviously, because that's my preference, but it's okay. But we're going to talk about the first thing. We're going to talk about Workstation, which is going to have GNOME 43. And there is a lot of cool changes in GNOME 43. And since Ryan is the GNOME fan of this particular podcast.
Am I a fan of GNOME? I use GNOME. I like GNOME, but I don't know I'd ever call myself a fan because they do things that frustrate me so much. It's like, I don't know, it's like a brother, like you love your brother, but you also hate him sometimes. And that's what GNOME is to me.
So you feel like you have to like it. But you also have problems with it.
Oh, darn, they're related to me. I have to get along with them kind of thing. Like, I don't know. There's something with them. But yes, there's some exciting things coming in GNOME 43. They have a new device security panel and settings, providing the user information about security of hardware and firmware of the system. Very, very important. I think that's really cool. Could they put that in a taskbar maybe that they could add back? That would be pretty nice. More core GNOME apps have been ported to the latest version of GTK Toolkit, providing improved performance. And the Raspberry Pi 4 is now officially supported in Fedora Linux, including the accelerated graphics. But more importantly, did you guys notice that when we switched to Fedora, and we got a lot of people interested in Fedora from this show. Then Linus Torvalds himself switches to Fedora. Coincidence? Yeah. I think not. When we tout something and tell everyone this is the distro to go to, that's where everyone goes, including the founder of Linux themselves. I'm taking credit for the whole thing.
I think I 100% agree that it just seems unlikely that just happens to be his choice. I mean, I'm also aware that he chose it 10 years ago, but that's not important to the reality of what we're trying to show.
For the story we're making up, that's not important, Michael.
Exactly.
What's interesting, though, is this show, like, if you watch this show from the very first episodes, we used to always talk about Ubuntu everything. Like, Ubuntu was it. And it was so great and so grand. And now it's all Fedora. The tides have changed in Linux, I think, so severely towards Fedora.
For you, it's Fedora and Arch. So
yeah, well, I mean, there's Arch and then there's everything else. But Fedora is like that next level, that next level right before you get to the Arch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is interesting that you pointed out, because we were talking about more Ubuntu related stuff, and now we're talking about a lot of Fedora stuff. And I think it's really cool that, this show is an example of, things evolve in the community and evolve in the ecosystem. Like sometimes the best examples to use are different from one year to the next, or even in this case, sometimes it's even months difference, because Linux moves so quickly that there could be a 6-month period where one distro is better than the other, and then all of a sudden it flips. And I think that's what's awesome about Linux ecosystem. There's so many cool things that happen all the time for every release of pretty much every distro. So
yeah, well, I'm just happy. It's like out of nowhere, Fedora community really just started pushing and showing up and ramping up their products.
Well, it wasn't out of nowhere, as you said. It was because of Destination Linux.
Oh yeah, we did it. Yeah, you're right. So what are some other features in this, Michael?
Well, one of the things that I was happy to see was they're going to be having official support for the Raspberry Pi 4. So I'm really happy to see that, because you're going to have a really efficient experience on the Pi with Fedora. So that's awesome. And the web installer for Anaconda is going to be available in a preview mode for Fedora 37.
Now, Michael, I know we just talked about testing your knowledge here. Can you help me out with this? Because when I see web installer, my brain instantly thinks like, I don't need a USB with a full OS anymore on it. I could just put a URL in there and it's going to install my system. So am I wrong here? What's a web installer?
I think that's an interesting question, because when you asked that, I was thinking, that's a good point. I mean, the web installer doesn't really convey what it is, because net installer doesn't convey what it is either, and that sounds like the same thing. So fair enough, but what the difference is that this version of Anaconda is using web technology and web programming languages and that sort of stuff to create the UI and the workflow. So in theory, the workflow should be relatively the same with Anaconda, with some tweaks here and there, but it's going to be using a different technology to create the installer. So this new preview mode is to try out that version of Anaconda.
Gotcha. I don't know how web installer then becomes, it's because it uses web tools. It's a web installer. It's interesting.
Well, it's web technologies, web's language. It's not very clear about what exactly it's called, but that, to be fair, if you heard Anaconda from Fedora, that wouldn't really be clear about what that was either. So I mean, there are a lot of different projects that have interesting names. Let's just say that. So, I give them a little bit of a pass on that one.
And Evelyn in chat asked, but will it have support for the Raspberry Pi 400? Yes, it will, because that's based on the Raspberry Pi 4 architecture. And I have a Raspberry Pi 400, and I love it. And someone asked in chat, what's my main distro? Well, honestly, I'm mostly on Debian and Ubuntu.
Arch.
But
Michael will get that in.
I have every distro installed because I have over 600 computers. Actually, I just counted 650 computers.
650 computers.
Yeah. So Jill, I test all the distros.
Sorry, everyone. Jill's not very good with numbers. You mean like 6.5 computers? Jill, with the decimal point? Because there's no way any human has 650 computers.
Yeah.
right?
I do.
So 600.
When I started the show, it was around 600, so it's quite a bit more now.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, so I guess every distro out there. And Michael, for you to dub over what distro Jill uses the most, Arch. Just put that right in that spot. Good.
Yeah.
So this is really your chance, honestly, to get involved. If you're one of those individuals, maybe you don't have a lot of coding experience or other things, this is a really good chance for anybody to get involved with the future of Fedora by, on a non-production machine, downloading this beta, because you're going to be using it for testing and reporting issues.
You clearly state it is a beta.
Yes. It is a beta, but this is your chance to contribute, because how do we get all the bugs from happening when other people, you're moving a brand new user over to Linux, the latest Fedora edition, you want to make sure there are no bugs for them. How does that happen? During this beta testing window is how it happens. This is the most important time where they really need people from the community to go out there, download the beta, start testing it, and most importantly, when you come across something, report those bugs. That doesn't mean on Twitter or social media or Facebook or TikTok, but actually reporting the bugs in the proper bug reporting. So make sure you get in there if you love Fedora, or even if you're not using Fedora but want to help out another open source project, go out there, download this beta on a non-production machine and do some testing there. It's a great way to get involved.
And this time we have a fun, massively multiplayer online role-playing game that is free and just came out of early access. If you don't care to play a tabletop role-playing game in IRL, or want to partake in a live-action role-playing campaign like Michael does, you can just play one virtually.
Did in the past, yes.
Michael, you LARP every weekend or something?
I LARPed 2 weekends. Like 10 years ago. That did happen. And I mentioned this on the show in a previous episode, and Jill just loves to bring it back up.
Yeah.
I have nothing against LARPing, but I've only done it twice, so I don't really know exactly what it's about. But
what do you mean?
I'm not against
visualizing you as a raptor or raptor wizard LARPing
That's true.
in the
I
middle
did do
of
that. That's true.
the crowd.
I did that in one of the episodes. We could put a clip in here if I can find it, where I did do a raptor LARPing.
Yes.
But
I'm not against LARPing. I just don't do it that much. So I just wanted to clarify that Jill just for some reason likes to bring it back up all the time.
We may be playing
Absolutely.
I think she just really likes my raptor impression. Really.
Yes,
like,
I
it has
do.
to be that.
I do. I think
well,
it was
Jill,
beautiful.
we talked about playing a tabletop D&D session with our community
absolutely.
a lot. And so I think Michael his character has to be a raptor wizard elf.
Raptor LARPing elf.
I'm good with that. I mean, a raptor wizard sounds pretty cool. So I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really like abracadabra.
Talents.
Yes. It'd be amazing. So tell us more about Myst.
Yeah, so the game we're going to be talking about is called Myst Legacy. And it's not to be confused with the first-person puzzler Myst, which is spelled M-Y-S-T. This is Myst, M-I-S-T Legacy.
Like what I spray Michael with in the face when he's bad.
Yes.
Like a cat.
And this game is actually a different approach to your typical MM or PG in that you can craft, level up, and go on adventures on your own and have fun exploring the universe. However, you still have the option of socializing in chat and grouping up with other adventurers to complete quests. And Myst Legacy is a game that features actually a very easy to use top-down world, turn-based combat, and a very skill-based progression system, like most role-playing games have. And I think in this Myst Legacy, one of the things that stood out to me was how easy it was to use and how much I actually love the graphics. The creatures are just so beautifully created, including the red and green dragons. I love them. So much detail. Very well done game. And the music is very cinematic and epic as well.
Nice.
Awesome.
This is awesome for people like myself who loved MMORPGs. Then I had kids and had no time. This allows me to go in, play a short game. But if I have time for the social aspect, I can use it. If not, I could just go on a quest or adventure on my own. I really like this kind of unique mix of an MMORPG and an offline RPG. So check out Myst Legacy out there. It looks pretty awesome.
Well, you said it was an MMORPG, but it's not MMORPG. It's Mamorpka. Mamorpka.
It's massively multiplayer online role-playing game is what it stands for. It's not Mamorpka.
Mamorpka.
MMORPG.
I'm pretty sure it's Mamorpka. We'll ask the community in the chat.
You know what? Maybe you can help me with the pronunciation of our software Spotlight, which I'm going to say is Rymdport. And Rymdport. Is that right, Michael? Is that pretty close?
I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have no idea.
Sure.
So I'm going to guess multiple things, and hopefully one of these is correct. Rymdport, and also Rymdport.
Good. I like the last one, honestly. That fits the most. So on the show, we often use Wormhole to transfer our files to each other after the show. There is a Flatpak application called Rymdport, which lets you do the same thing between clients locally, so you can easily move files between other machines regardless of the platform, as long as you have the other client installed. The app is Rymdport, and it's formerly Wormhole GUI, it was named. It is a cross-platform application, lets you easily and safely share files, folders, and text between devices, which I do a lot of in my home. I will move files between I don't have 650 computers like Jill, but I've got like 6 or so, and I have to move files between them constantly. And this is really cool because it sends it with end-to-end encryption using the same protocol as Magic Wormhole. And this means that Rymdport can talk not only to itself, but other Wormhole clients as well. And they're transferred implementing using the Wormhole William, a native Go implementation of Magic Wormhole. So really cool app. It's a Flatpak. You can easily check it out, see if it's something you can use if you need to move files between your different machines on a regular basis like we do.
I definitely want to check this out because I do this quite often, and usually I have to do some kind of upload it to a server, or sometimes even put it on wormhole.app. And I don't want to clarify that this is a different thing. One is called wormhole.app and the other one is called Magic Wormhole. They are separate projects, it seems. It's hard to tell because there's not very clear information about it. And also, I applaud you for the pronunciation of Rymdport. It's great. So
wait till the developer writes us. And
it's probably not it, but I think, or maybe they're going to adopt it because it was such a good pronunciation that they're like,
they'll just clip this and put it on their site. Like, This is how you say our name. I would love that. Yeah.
That would be amazing. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the tip of the week, and that is related to Fedora again, because again, we're the people who created the entire trend for Fedora. So it makes sense that
Thank you.
So Fedora Rescue is what we're going to be talking about. So you shouldn't sleep on Fedora Rescue mode because, there are times where you're making changes that, end up making your system unbootable. And I want to point out that's not a Fedora problem. It's just a regular distro usage problem. If you're a tinkerer, if you're not a tinkerer, you don't have to worry about this kind of thing because you're not messing with stuff. But
it's a problem between the keyboard and the chair is what you're saying.
Pretty much, yes. I'm saying if you're a tinkerer like us, it might happen to you. So if you like to fiddle with stuff, it sometimes will break. But that's not a big deal. No worries. Just get that same USB device that you use to install Fedora and boot to it and utilize the rescue mode options built in. It's not something you gotta do extra special. It's already there. The rescue mode lets you access your files, make changes, and rescue your system without having to reinstall the entire OS. You can make fixes and stuff, and it gives you really nice access to do so. And so, like, the next time you're stuck with, anything, I guess, maybe even a sentence, grab that USB and make sure you have the Fedora manual bookmarked and walk through your simple rescue steps to get back to doing what you want to do. And we'll have links to the Fedora rescue mode documentation in the show notes.
So in our announcements this week, the 9th year of Hacktoberfest is around. DigitalOcean's month-long celebration of open source is shaping up to be the best one yet. I went and joined this on the Discord channel. This is really well laid out and designed, as DigitalOcean often does with everything. Hacktoberfest is for everyone, whether it's your first time or your 9th. It's almost time to hack. And what happens is you go into this community and a bunch of people are posting their projects that they need help with or that they're on the verge of building, maybe ideas that they're working on. And then others in the community, you can go through and you could say, hey, I want to help out during Hacktoberfest with that project. And then they will get you onboarded and help. You can get in there and start helping build out that project. It really just teaches you how to get involved in open source projects. And the great thing is they're there to train you as well. So if you don't have skill set or you're a master coder, either one, those works perfect. You can go in there and offer your assistance on any of these projects that you find interesting and get involved with them, which that's the open source way. That's the open source community. It's hung out there in Discord, which by the way, you can join our Discord while you're there on the Tux Digital Discord and go hang out with some really awesome people that love the same things that you do there. So check out Hacktoberfest. And then we also got an email for a suggestion for an event, and that was, they stated, I was heartened to hear you talk about a Linux-based dental office system in This Week in Linux 212. I'd like to bring your attention to GNU HealthCon 2022 in November. So this one's in November, but we'll have a link in the show notes for how you can get more information and mark your calendar, where FOSS is discussed across the field of medicine as applied within both developed and emerging economies. Really important topic,
cool.
Really amazing stuff there.
Awesome.
So make sure to go to the GNUHealthCon.org website and sign up for getting involved in that event. So a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. We're here every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern live at tuxdigital.com/live. And the best part, everyone is invited to watch the recording of Destination Linux each and every week. And let me tell you something, if you're not catching that, you're missing all kinds of silly antics, usually created by Jill. Usually it's really hard to contain Jill, and she's saying a bunch of silly things or talking about the world history of cheese. I mean, that actually happened. I'm not making that up. You're missing so much if you're not tuning in live. So we hope that you'll go to tuxdigital.com/live Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Check us out, tuxdigital.com/live.
And if you don't go to the live stream, you'll never know if that was true or not. Where Jill does, is Jill the problem? Is Ryan am I the problem? Who knows? But if you're not watching live, there's no way for you to know unless you become a patron, because you can watch the unedited versions as a patron when you go to tuxdigital.com/contribute and become a patron of this show. Plus, an extra bonus, arguably maybe the best part. I'm not sure. Ryan said the other thing is the best part. You can decide by becoming a patron and joining us in the patron-only post show, which happens every week after the show in the 60,000 square foot virtual stadium. And this is where you can join us in the skybox of that virtual stadium for the patron-only post show. And another thing, which also might still be it's hard to decide what's the best part, because we also have the Tux Digital Store where you can get some awesome swag like t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, stickers, coasters, desk mats, which are like gigantic mouse pads, which are awesome, and of course nothing that Ryan is picking up, because he always randomly picks stuff up that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Except Ryan's hat, Linux 91.
Yes.
That is true. His hat you can get at the Tux Digital Store. So tuxdigital.com/store.
And make sure to check out all the awesome shows here on Tux Digital. We have the Pseudo Show, This Week in Linux, the DOS Geek Channel, Linux Out Loud, Hardware Addicts, GameSphere, and Linux Saloon. And everyone head to tuxdigital.com and subscribe to all these incredible shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching and the full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce.
Everybody have a great week, and remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Aww.
See you next week.
Love you.
Most of you.
There we go.
Dave, were you trying to do an impression of like making it think it's like Jill saying that?
Yes.
Most of you.
Most of you.